Spain's socialist-led government is set to introduce a monthly basic income scheme for those hardest hit by the coronavirus crisis. The plan will aim to reach at least 100,000 households initially, with each adult receiving a payment of at least €462. It's rarely been implemented in Europe before, and some are welcoming it as a new type of universal basic income. Well, let's discuss this now with Guy Standing, who has written extensively in favour of the idea of a universal basic income and is a co-president of the Basic Income Earth Network, and also Javier Marias, Professor of Applied Economics at the CEU San Pablo University in Madrid. You are both very welcome. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Guy, first of all, is this really a universal basic income in this instance, in that I understand it's means tested?
Well, yeah, it isn't a basic income. It's what we call a minimum income scheme. It's not only means tested, but it's based on last year's incomes, and it's going to be very selective. Now, my concern is that it's very timid, and that the real problem we are facing with the pandemic, not just in Spain, but in all countries, including Britain, is we need to build resilience. And the resilience is going to be weakened if large numbers of the poor and vulnerable are left out of any income support scheme. There are about 11 million impoverished people living below the official poverty line in Spain at the moment. And it's current income loss that matters, not last year's income. So I think the scheme is moving in a good direction in the sense that they recognize they need income support, but I think the design flaws are quite serious.
A big gulf, though, between the 11 million you cite and the 100,000 households initially benefiting from this scheme. Professor Marias, what has the political debate been like in Spain around the introduction of this measure?
Well, we have several universal basic income, for instance, in Madrid or in Andalusia, etc. So I think that it depends on, because we don't know yet if will be with or without, for instance, the food stamps. We don't know if will be permanent, this kind of help. So I think that the black economy will be up with this measure.
And Guy, you talk about this being a little bit timid, but can the Spanish government afford it? How long is this support intended to go on for?
Well, I think they can certainly afford it. I mean, they've been giving out, and other countries have too, huge amounts to the financial markets and various other schemes. It's not a question of the affordability in the short term, but I think that the design flaws will mean that they'll have to make changes. For example, it's being given on a household basis. And what we know is with a basic income scheme, you'd give it on an individual basis. And it's very important for women in particular. We've seen a dramatic increase in domestic violence in all parts of Europe due to the lockdown and pandemic and increased income insecurity. And a woman having basic income would be more able to walk out of abusive relationships. But with a household unit, very complicated formula that they're devising, I think that it's going to have incredible exclusion errors. Large numbers of people who will be eligible on paper will not be receiving this benefit. So I anticipate that when it comes in a few weeks' time, very rapidly the government will have to make amendments to the design. Otherwise, the problem of lack of resilience that I mentioned earlier is going to continue and worsen in the coming months.
Javier, you may not think that now is the time for ideological debate around a scheme like this, but what are the pros and cons of this particular scheme versus something like a wage subsidy scheme? Presumably the latter wouldn't reach potentially as many people, as many types of people as this minimum income.
Well, in favor, it's will be the private consume will be up. But on the other side, as I said, I think it's in a measure for to increase the fraud with this kind of money. I think, no?
And Guy, you talk about issues with the design of the scheme. I know some pilots have taken place. So what have the pilots for this particular scheme been like? And when you talk more broadly about a universal basic income, what sort of pilots have there been for an idea like that?
Well, there have been about 20 pilots of real basic income, and there is one ongoing in Barcelona at the moment. And what happens with basic income schemes is you give every individual a fixed amount, and you can tax back from the wealthy so that the costs can be controlled. But it gives people a sense of empowerment. It gives them security. And what we've seen from all the pilots, whether in Canada, Finland, India, various other places, including Britain, incidentally, is that it increases mental stability. It improves people's mental health and capacity to face shocks and have greater resilience. And I think that this pandemic is making that issue the cardinal one for this year. And unless the schemes that are introduced reach the vast majority of people, we're going to see post-COVID excess deaths dramatically high, and a second and third wave that we anticipate in the illnesses, leaving people excessively vulnerable, with homelessness rising and so on. And I think it's absolutely important that we have schemes that are, I don't like the term universal, but cover the vast majority of legal residents and give them individual capacities to face the shocks that are coming. But at the moment, this scheme is just a timid step in a good direction. I don't want to be totally critical, but I think it could be vastly improved without actually increasing the cost.
Okay, Guy Standing, thank you very much for joining us there from Geneva. And also, we have lost the line to Madrid, but thanks to Professor Javier Marias from San Pablo University in Madrid as well.